I buried my son 33 years ago. His name was Michael. He was 16 when the wildfire swept through Eagle Ridge in the summer of 1992. They told me 11 people died that week, most of them firefighters and volunteers trying to contain the blaze. Michael was one of the volunteers. I identified his body at the county morgue in Grand Junction, Colorado. I was 31 years old, and I had to tell my wife that our only child was gone. Last Wednesday, my phone rang at 2:17 inches the morning. The caller ID showed an Alaska area code, 907. I almost sent it to voicemail. At 64, you learn that calls at that hour bring nothing but bad news. But my hand was already reaching for the phone before my brain caught up. Maybe it was instinct. Maybe it was the same sixth sense that used to wake me when Michael had nightmares as a kid. I answered, "Is this Robert Chen?" The voice was rough, hesitant, like someone who hadn't used it much in a very long time. I sat up in bed, my heart already starting to pound. Something about that voice made my skin prickle. "This is Robert," I said. "Who's calling?" There was breathing on the other end. Heavy, uneven. Then, "I don't know if you'll believe me. I don't even know if I believe it myself. But I think I'm your son. I think I'm Michael." The phone slipped from my hand. I heard it hit the nightstand. Heard that voice still talking, tinny and distant. My wife Jessica stirred beside me, reaching for the lamp. "Robert? What's wrong?" I grabbed the phone again, my hands shaking so badly I almost dropped it a second time. "This isn't funny," I said, and my voice came out harsh, angry. "My son died 33 years ago. I don't know who you are, but this is sick." "I know," the voice said. "I know how that sounds. But 3 weeks ago, I found something. A box in a storage unit I've been renting. Old newspapers, and there's a photo, an article about the Eagle Ridge fire. There's a picture of a boy, and underneath it says, Michael Chen, 16, believed dead." And I looked at that picture, and I knew that was me. My lungs felt like they'd forgotten how to work. Jessica was sitting up now, gripping my arm, her face pale in the lamplight. "Where are you?" I managed to say. "Anchorage, Alaska. I've been here for, I don't know, a long time. Maybe 20 years? Before that, I think I was somewhere else, but it's all fuzzy. The doctors here say I have retrograde amnesia. I can't remember anything before about 15 years ago. Just fragments, fire, trees. Someone yelling my name. What do you remember about before?" I asked, testing him. My mind was racing. This had to be a scam. Someone who'd found Michael's name and decided to torture me with it. "Not much that's clear," he said. "Sometimes I dream about sawdust, the smell of it, and someone teaching me to cut dovetail joints. And there's a workshop with tools on pegboard, everything in its place. And sometimes I hear someone saying, 'Measure twice, cut once.' The tears hit me then, sudden and hot, because that was my voice he was hearing. That was our garage workshop. I'd taught Michael woodworking from the time he was 8 years old. 'Measure twice, cut once' had been my constant refrain. "Do you have any distinguishing marks?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. "Scars? Birthmarks?" There was a pause. "I have a birthmark. On my right shoulder. It's kind of shaped like a handprint. People used to ask me about it. I couldn't breathe. Couldn't think. Michael had been born with that birthmark. We used to joke that an angel had touched him before sending him to us. "Give me your address," I said. "I'm coming to get you." "Mr. Chen." "Robert, I don't think that's a good idea. I'm not the person you remember. I can't remember being him. I'm just someone who's been working odd jobs in Alaska for most of his adult life. I live in a studio apartment above a bait shop. I probably don't look anything like your son anymore." "I don't care what you look like," I said firmly. "Tell me where you are, right now." He gave me an address in Anchorage. I wrote it down with shaking hands, my writing barely legible. "Stay there," I said. "Don't go anywhere. I'm flying out today. Do you understand? Don't leave." "Okay," he said softly. "Okay, I'll wait." The line went dead. I sat there in the darkness of my bedroom for maybe 10 seconds before I was moving, pulling on clothes, grabbing my wallet, searching for flights on my phone. "Robert," Jessica said, her voice shaking. Robert, what's happening? I looked at her. This woman I'd been married to for 38 years. This woman who'd held me while I cried at Michael's funeral. This woman who'd spent 3 decades visiting a grave every Sunday. Someone just called, I said. He says he's Michael. Her hand flew to her mouth. No, that's not possible. I know. But Jessica, he knew things. The workshop, the birthmark. I have to go. I have to see. She grabbed my arm. I'm coming with you. No, I said gently. Not yet. Let me go first. Let me figure out what this is. If it's real. If it's really him. I'll call you immediately. The earliest flight I could get was 6:35 a.m. out of Denver. That gave me 3 hours to drive from Grand Junction to the airport. I was on the road by 3 a.m., pushing my truck faster than I should have, my mind spinning with possibilities that seemed impossible. I kept thinking about that day at the morgue. The fire had been massive, unprecedented in Colorado history. It had burned for 8 days before they got it under control. By then, thousands of acres were gone, along with 11 lives. Michael had been volunteering with the Forestry Service that summer. He'd wanted to be a park ranger someday. He was on a crew cutting fire breaks when the wind shifted and the fire jumped the line. They'd found a body 3 days later in the burn zone, badly burned, but the dental records matched. Or at least, that's what they'd told me. The body was about the right height, right build. I'd identified him from a ring he always wore, a silver band with a turquoise stone that I'd given him for his 16th birthday. But what if I'd been wrong? What if in my grief and shock, I'd identified the wrong body? What if the dental records had been mixed up? It was 1992. Things weren't as computerized then. Mistakes could happen. The flight from Denver to Anchorage took 7 hours. I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat. I just stared out the window at the clouds and the mountains below and tried to prepare myself for whatever I was about to find. I landed in Anchorage at 1:45 p.m. local time. The address he'd given me was in a rough part of town near the port. I took a cab, watching the city slide past the windows. It was June, and Alaska was in that strange season of near-constant daylight. The bait shop was exactly what he'd described, a weathered building that smelled like fish and gasoline. There was a narrow staircase on the side leading up to a door marked with a faded 2B. I climbed those stairs feeling like I was moving through a dream. My hand shook as I knocked. The door opened. The man standing there was not the boy I remembered. He was weathered and lean, with deep lines around his eyes and gray streaking through dark hair that hung past his collar. He looked older than 49. He looked like someone who'd lived hard and rough for a long time. But the eyes... God, the eyes were the same. Dark brown, almost black, with that same intensity Michael had always had. "Robert," he said, and his voice cracked. I couldn't speak. I just stared at him, this stranger who might be my son. He stepped back, gesturing me inside. The apartment was small, scrupulously clean, and almost empty. A bed, a table, 2 chairs, a hot plate on a counter. Through the window, I could see the port and the mountains beyond. "Show me your shoulder," I said. My voice came out harsher than I intended. The right one. He didn't hesitate. He pulled off his shirt. There, on his right shoulder, was the birthmark. Exactly the same size and shape as Michael's, roughly the size of a child's hand, with distinct finger-like projections. My knees went weak. I grabbed the edge of the table. "Sit down," he said quickly, pulling out one of the chairs. I sat. He sat across from me, still shirtless, watching me carefully. "Tell me what you remember," I said. "The fire itself, I don't remember, but I have nightmares. Always the same. I'm running through trees. Everything is smoke and heat. I can hear people screaming, hear the fire roaring like a freight train. And then nothing. Just darkness." He rubbed his face with both hands. The gesture was familiar. Michael used to do that when he was thinking hard about something. The next clear memory I have is waking up on a fishing boat. A man was standing over me, and he said, "You're awake. Good. We've got work to do." I didn't know where I was. Didn't know my name. Didn't know anything. The man said I'd been in an accident, that he'd found me on the beach near Juneau, Said I was lucky to be alive. What year was this? I asked. I don't know. I didn't even know what year it was. I had to figure that out later. Based on things I remember, I think it was sometime in the mid-90s, maybe 95 or 96. 3 or 4 years after the fire. 3 or 4 years of what? The man who found you, I said. What happened to him? Michael's face darkened. His name was Victor, Russian guy. He ran a fishing operation out of Dutch Harbor. He told me I owed him, that he'd saved my life, and now I had to work it off. So I did. I worked on his boat, 16, 18-hour days, sleeping in a bunk with 5 other guys, getting paid almost nothing. For how long? Years. I don't know exactly. Time kind of blurred together. But I think maybe 15 years? I finally got away in 2010 or so. Victor died. Heart attack. The boat got sold. I ended up in Anchorage with almost no money and no memories of anything before the boat. I felt sick. 15 years. 15 years of my son being exploited, used, while I thought he was dead. What happened after 2010? I asked. I got work where I could, docks, construction, fish processing. I kept to myself mostly, didn't make friends, didn't trust people. I had these gaps in my memory. Whole days or weeks I couldn't account for. I'd see doctors at free clinics when I could. They said I probably had brain damage, trauma, but nobody could really help me. He looked down at his hands. They were scarred and calloused, the hands of someone who'd done hard manual labor for decades. About 5 months ago, he continued, my landlord told me I had to clean out a storage unit. Said it had been in my name for years, but I'd stopped paying. I didn't even remember renting it. But I went there, and inside was this box. Old newspapers from 1992, articles about the Eagle Ridge fire, and there was my picture. He stood up and went to a drawer, pulled out a carefully folded newspaper clipping. He handed it to me. It was from the Grand Junction Daily Sentinel, the 19th of July, 1992. Teenage volunteer feared dead in Eagle Ridge fire. There was Michael's school photo. His smile, his whole life ahead of him. I stared at that picture for hours, he said, and something in my brain just clicked. That was me. I knew it was me. The name felt right. Michael Chen. I kept saying it over and over. Why did it take you 5 months to call? I asked. I was scared. I found your name in the article, survived by Father Robert Chen and Mother Jessica Chen of Grand Junction, but I didn't know if you'd still be alive. Didn't know if you'd believe me. Didn't know if I even believed it myself. I thought maybe I was crazy. Maybe I'd seen that picture and somehow convinced myself I was this dead kid. He sat back down. But then I started having more memories. Not of the fire, but of before. The workshop. Building a birdhouse with you when I was 10. You teaching me to use a lathe. Your voice saying, measure twice, cut once, and I knew. I knew I was Michael Chen. I was crying now. Really crying for the first time in years. We need to do a DNA test, I said. That's the only way to know for sure. He nodded. I already looked into it. There's a lab here that can do it. Results in 48 hours. I pulled out my phone and called them right there. Made an appointment for 4 p.m. that afternoon. Come on, I said, standing up. Let's go get this done. We drove to the lab in silence. I kept glancing at him in the passenger seat, trying to see my 6-year-old son in this 9-year-old man. Sometimes I could see it, the shape of his nose, the way he bit his lower lip when he was nervous. Other times, he looked like a complete stranger. The DNA test was simple. Cheek swabs for both of us, paperwork, payment. The technician said they'd call me within 8 hours. As we left the lab, I realized I didn't want to just leave him in that apartment above the bait shop. I got a hotel room near the airport, I said. Come stay with me. We can wait for the results together. He hesitated. You don't have to do that. I know. Come on. I got a room with 2 beds at a hotel near Lake Hood. On the way there, I called Jessica. I'm with him, I said when she answered. I don't know yet if it's really him. We did a DNA test. But Jess. I heard her sob on the other end. Should I fly up? Wait for the results. If it's real, I'll call you immediately and you can come up. Okay, she whispered. Okay. I love you. I love you too. At the hotel, we ordered pizza. While we ate, I told him about his life, about how he'd loved building things with his hands, how he'd wanted to be a park ranger, how he'd been excited about starting his senior year of high school that fall, how his mother and I had planted a tree in his memory in the backyard and watched it grow for 33 years. He listened with tears streaming down his face. I wish I could remember, he said. I wish I could remember being that person, being loved like that. Maybe you will, I said. Maybe when you know for sure who you are, it'll start coming back. That night, I lay awake, listening to him sleep in the bed next to mine. His breathing was steady, peaceful, the sleep of someone who'd finally found a safe place. I called Detective Marcus Rivera of the Grand Junction Police Department the next morning, told him everything. He was quiet for a long moment after I finished. Mr. Chen, he said carefully, I need to tell you something. Even if this man is your son, which seems unlikely, we need to investigate what happened. If he was taken and forced to work, that's human trafficking. That's a federal crime. I know, I said. That's why I'm calling you. Someone needs to look into this. And there's something else. If Michael didn't die in that fire, then who did we bury? I was just thinking the same thing, Rivera said. If the DNA comes back positive, we'll need to exhume the grave. We'll need to find out who that person actually was. The phone call came at 3:47 p.m. on Friday. I was sitting in the hotel room with Michael, watching him try to remember how to play chess. I'd taught him when he was 8. He said his hands knew the moves, even if his brain didn't. I answered on the first ring. Mr. Chen, this is Dr. Helen Kowalski from Arctic Genomics Lab. My hand was shaking. Michael had frozen across from me, a chess piece still in his hand. Yes, I said. This is Robert Chen. The results of your paternity test are conclusive. The probability of paternity is 99.99%. Mr. Chen, the man you tested with is your biological son. The room tilted. Michael dropped the chess piece. It clattered on the table. You're certain? I asked, though I knew it was a pointless question. Absolutely certain. Would you like me to email you the full report? I gave her my email and hung up. I looked at my son who'd been dead for 33 years, my son who'd been alive this whole time. It's you, I said. You're really Michael. He made a sound that was half laugh, half sob. I'm Michael, he repeated, like he needed to hear himself say it. I'm Michael Chen. And then we were both crying, and I crossed the space between us and pulled him into my arms. He felt thin and fragile, but he was real. He was alive. He was my son. We held each other for a long time. Finally, I pulled back. I need to call your mother, I said. Jessica answered before the first ring finished. Robert? It's him, I said. The DNA test came back. It's really him. It's Michael. I heard her scream, a sound of pure joy and grief mixed together. I'm getting on the next flight, she said. I'm coming right now. She arrived 8 hours later. When Michael saw her coming through the hotel lobby, he stood up from the couch where we'd been waiting. They looked at each other for a long moment. Then Jessica ran to him and wrapped her arms around him and sobbed into his shoulder. My baby, you're alive. Mom, he whispered. And I realized it was the first time he'd said that word in 33 years. That was 4 months ago. It hasn't been easy. Michael has nightmares almost every night. Memories of the fishing boat, of Victor, of years of exploitation. He struggles with crowds and loud noises. He sees a trauma therapist 3 times a week. But he's also remembering good things. Last week, he remembered the Christmas he got his first pocket knife. He remembered fishing trips with me. He remembered his mother's pot roast. Small things, but they're building. Detective Rivera worked with the FBI. They opened an investigation into Victor's operation. It turns out he'd been doing this for years, smuggling workers from Russia and Southeast Asia, picking up runaways and amnesiacs like Michael. He died in 2009, but they were able to arrest 3 of his associates on human trafficking charges. They also exhumed the grave in Grand Junction. DNA testing revealed that the person we'd buried wasn't Michael. It was a teenage runaway from Denver named Alex Martinez. He'd been missing since June of 1992. His mother had been looking for him for 33 years. We held a memorial service for Alex. His mother, Maria Martinez, came. It was one of the hardest days of my life, standing there with the mother of a boy who'd been lying in my son's grave for 3 decades. She held my hand during the service. "At least now I know," she said. "At least now I can really bury my son. Michael has moved to Grand Junction. He's living with us while he gets back on his feet. He got a job at a woodworking shop downtown. The owner, an older guy named Earl, doesn't ask too many questions. Michael comes home with sawdust in his hair and a little more light in his eyes each day. My grandchildren have met him. We have 3, Michael's niece and 2 nephews from Jessica's sister's kids. They're cautious but kind. The youngest, Emma, decided that Uncle Michael is her favorite person. She follows him around the workshop while he builds her a dollhouse. We still don't fully understand what happened in those first few years after the fire. The doctors think Michael was thrown from the fire zone, badly injured, and found by someone who saw an opportunity. Maybe Victor himself. Maybe someone who sold him to Victor. Michael had a severe skull fracture that healed poorly. That, combined with trauma, created the amnesia that lasted decades. But he's healing now. Slowly, day by day. Last week, Michael asked if we could visit his grave, the empty one that we'd visited every Sunday for 33 years. We stood there together, the 3 of us, looking at the headstone that read Michael Chen, 1976 to 1992, beloved son. "What do we do about this?" Jessica asked. "I think we leave it," Michael said. "It's a memorial to who I was, to the life I lost. I'm not that person anymore. I can't be. But he was real, and he mattered. So we left it. We planted flowers around it. And now when we visit, it's not to mourn a death. It's to remember a life that was interrupted but not ended." Michael asked me something yesterday as we worked together in my workshop, building a bookshelf. "Do you blame yourself?" he asked. "For identifying the wrong body?" I set down my saw and looked at him. "Every single day," I said honestly. "Don't," he said. "You were 31. You'd just lost your son. The dental record said it was me. You did the best you could with what you knew." "I should have made sure," I said. "If you had. If somehow you'd realized it wasn't me, would you have kept looking? In the wilderness, with thousands of acres burned?" I thought about it. Probably not. Eventually, I would have had to accept that your body might never be found. Exactly. So maybe this way was better. This way, I found you. I'm here. I'm alive. And I have a father who flew to Alaska in the middle of the night because a stranger claimed his name. He's right, I suppose. I'm trying to forgive myself. It's harder than it sounds. Sometimes late at night, I lie awake and think about all the years we lost. All the birthdays and Christmases and graduations. All the moments we should have shared. I think about Jessica and how she cried every Sunday at that grave. That's the hardest part, the weight of all that grief that didn't need to exist. But then I remind myself what Dr. Kowalski said when we first met her. You can't change the past. You can only move forward. So that's what we're doing, learning how to be a family again. Or maybe learning how to be a family for the first time, because we're all different people now. This morning, Michael came downstairs with a smile on his face. "I remembered something," he said. "A camping trip. You and me. I must have been about 14. We hiked up to some lake, and you taught me to fly fish. And I caught this tiny trout, and I was so proud. And you said," he paused, his eyes getting wet. "You said, 'Good job, son.' I'm proud of you. I remember that trip," I said. "That was Lake San Cristobal. You threw that trout back because you said it was too small and needed to grow up." "Yeah," he said softly. "Yeah, I think that's right. More memories are coming back now. Not all of them, maybe never all of them, but enough. Enough to know who he was. Enough to know who he is now. I learned something through all of this. I learned that miracles happen, even when you've stopped believing in them. I learned that the human spirit is more resilient than we can imagine. I learned that family isn't just about shared memories. It's about choosing to show up day after day, even when it's hard. And I learned that it's never too late for a second chance. Michael is still finding himself. He may never fully remember everything. He'll always carry the scars of those lost years. But he's here, he's alive, he's home. And that's enough. That's more than enough. That's everything.